Hi everyone, Graham Couch here from the Lansing State Journal alongside Chris Solari from the Detroit Free Press and from the Blue Wall itself, the great Shawn Windsor. After Michigan State's 41-7 loss to Washington, that was just complete. They were completely outclassed in every facet: line of scrimmage, offense, defense, and Michael Penix, he looked like he belongs at a different level, certainly than Michigan State. We'll find out whether he belongs at a different level than everybody in college football real soon. But I think this is one of the more discouraging and deflating Saturdays in a while for Michigan State. Your initial thoughts?
Well, I don't know if the coaching change would have even mattered. That was an added disruption to what was already a pretty monumental task. They haven't stopped Michael Penix in the previous 3 times they played him, and now what we saw tonight, 713 yards, the most allowed ever in MSU history, 536 passing yards, tied for the second most allowed in MSU history. This has been a rough defense, and we could sit there and talk about how much the disruption of the Mel Tucker allegations and the suspension.
Well, I don't think they're going to face a test like this, even Ohio State or Maryland this year, or anybody like it.
That's all fair, but they scored less points than both Boise State and Tulsa against this Washington defense.
I would say
there's a lot of things to be concerned about.
Yes.
The entire staff.
I would say this. I would say the offense is as big a concern, maybe even bigger than the defense, because the defense at least faced a dude who probably could start in the NFL for half the teams this year. The offense has faced a defense that was part of a 4-8 team 2 years ago that's still been recruiting. It was a good defense, but the
Ask
offense
yourself
is
this
concerning.
question though: if there wasn't the Mel Tucker situation and he hadn't been suspended and all this week, if this performance happened, there'd be coordinators' heads on the line on both sides of the ball.
What are your thoughts?
It's hard to know how much. Look, this had an effect. There's no way it didn't.
Absolutely.
We just heard Holland Barnett use the word off kilter. He's talking about the week. Everybody's off kilter. They're, I have some colleagues at the Free Press, not Chris, who fuss at me for referring often to college athletes, student athletes, as kids. But I can't help it. I call my kids, and they're older. They're a little bit older than these guys, right? But they are. They're somewhere between 18 and 23. That's not an adult. So adults have a hard time processing this. So why wouldn't they? If Mel Tucker coached this game, if none of this had happened, they lose to me.
It was big.
And probably by several touchdowns.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's what we saw tonight. I don't think we see the discombobulation, some of the personal fouls, although I know that's
we saw a lot of that the first 2 weeks.
The substitution issues, especially at home, and it's a couple of those were on special teams, but it's just there was something that was off.
The one thing I think that we saw with this game that is a result of that was it felt like there was somewhat of a give-up point. When they went in at 35-0 at halftime, and guys were getting injured, it didn't feel like this team was altogether there after that start.
I never want to say
honestly.
athletes, as Graham,
I don't think they
Graham's
quit.
an athlete, right? So Graham
I don't listen. I don't.
Graham can attest to this.
I'm not saying they quit, but you could tell that they were mentally.
Well, you
worn
get
down
demoralized
at that
for sure.
Yes,
and,
there was
and
a
maybe subconsciously you do slow a little
That's
bit.
probably a better way. Demoralized more so than
But
quitting or
the
giving
give up
up.
is hard. What do you think, Graham? I don't think we see quite the same performance of Tucker.
I don't know. One of the things that was interesting listening to, like Trey Mosley and J.D. Duplain is like athletes have trouble when admitting somebody's bigger, faster, stronger than them, right? So it's always just got to execute better, got to clean this up. I think this was going to look like this. We have seen, and we have seen Washington and we have seen Michael Penix do this to Michigan State before. I think the biggest concerning thing coming out of this, because I think even though what they're going to face in Maryland next week is a really good quarterback and a team that's putting up some points, and they're going to face other good offense. I think the biggest concern of this is the line of scrimmage.
I was just going to say,
and their own quarterback play a little bit. That Noah Kim, nobody expected Noah Kim to go toe to toe with Michael Penix, but he's 12 for 31. Like 130 some yards.
Sailed how many passes?
Yeah, just missed. And then there were a couple key drives. There's one drive. Where he telegraphs a pass on a key third down when they're near midfield. The next, and that leads to the touchdown for them to go up 21-0. And then the next time they have their most promising drive, they're just the edge of field goal range on third down, and they had gotten there with 2 good passes by him, a third down QB sneak, some promising things. He misses on 2 passes in a row, and then he takes a sack where his eyes weren't downfield, where he's just running into trouble. Like he looked overwhelmed in that moment.
That took them out of field goal range.
Right, and not that field goal itself makes a huge difference in this game, but I'm just saying that was a moment where you go, that.
Putting
I don't
up
know
points were important at that point because of the offensive struggles. I mean, we heard the boos.
But I'm talking long term. That was.
I'm talking long term as well, because a lot of these things we saw in those first 2 weeks hints at this. You know, I mean, Kim struggled out of the gate in the first 2 games, found a rhythm, but again, that was against a MAC team and one AA FCS team.
No, the talent level was different, but I'm with you. It's all about the line of scrimmage. From the very first 2 series, Kim was running for his life a little bit. There was no room to run for the running backs. And,
that's also an issue too. The running backs that they didn't have.
Well, it's the offensive line. To me, the more is the issue.
Yeah.
But say what you will about Penix, he had all day to throw.
He did.
Although even when they got to him in the end zone, he torched him for 3. I mean, he's so good.
Well,
they're counted everything.
And he was squeezing it in the tiny little windows because
and their receivers are.
Was there anything that Michael Penix didn't do? Any throw that he didn't make under pressure? Plenty of time.
Let's credit the
sidearm
too.
over the top. Yeah. Oh, they had some good catches on 50-50 balls.
Catches. Big. I mean, Harlan Burnett was talking about the good hands, the strong hands, the going and getting the ball right.
We'll see where this Washington team goes, but this was the worst opponent also to face this week right now for this team.
Probably
and they obviously failed the test. What will be really interesting is the next 2 weeks going into the bye are against formidable teams. And
another good quarterback next week.
Yeah, and then so like we're going to find out, are they at all decent? Like, can they? Because I think the challenge for Harlan Barnett is now twofold. You got a staff that right now probably feels a little bit like dead man walking. You've got a team that probably feels like, oh, we're just not that good. This is going south. So you not only have to rally that, you not only have to change that mindset and get these guys to be decent, but you've also then, as a guy who wants to keep this job, you also have to prove the trajectory that maybe the program was on with some of the young guys evolving is the trajectory it was on over the next 2 months. Coming off of this, that's really hard to do, and it's a tough spot.
It is. It's a mess.
Yeah.
When's basketball season?
I'm
you were tweeting about that.
Look, I think if you're a Michigan
that.
State fan, think about this. If you were an Alabama fan, a Michigan fan, an Ohio State fan, a South Carolina fan, and this happened, it is 11 months of being gutted. You got nothing else in your life. Down south, it's like heat you can't even stand, too. It's the worst.
Some of these schools have been really good in basketball.
It doesn't matter, but you don't care. But you don't
much.
care. So you got nothing you care about to turn to. Like maybe SEC baseball, I don't know, maybe they care about that. But what I mean is, at least here you have something. So that, I think as an MSU fan, you are still better off in the worst of times in football when there's something in basketball than most places.
But you're also looking at the potential for this going sideways
really
fast in a hurry, and that's never good.
And the other thing is that they can't even do this off the radar for a while because there's going to be distractions. There's going to be things that are on the radar.
Hey, if there was plus, this was on Peacock.
Well, that's true. Not a lot of people saw it.
Yeah. Think about it this way: the team that won 41-7 tonight won 4 games 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They go out and get a new coach. He brings his quarterback. They won 11 games last year. They'll probably get there again. But that's how quickly this thing can turn around.
But the one thing that
these guys just did it themselves.
One thing Washington had 2 years ago is they had a very good defense that wore down. They were much closer to like Michigan State 2019, 2018 with no offense, and then got the offensive guy in the quarterback. Yeah. And so it's a quicker turn. The base of the defense was already built in Washington's program so it's it's a weird 4-8 because they had no offense and they brought in a guy who knew how to do that, and that's why they're in this spot.
But you got to get lucky, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was here for the 1995 Nebraska game. That was the first game I covered, Nick Saban's debut, and this was very reminiscent of that, maybe a little bit worse because of the circumstances. That was a moment of build and positivity in some ways that got, okay, we aren't there yet.
You want to tell our listeners, readers, viewers, about the 60s or maybe the 70s?
That was the last time it was this bad. That was the record.
I'm trying to get him to smile.
The old hippie here who was in Haight-Ashbury calling me old.
Yeah, no. Looking for Led Zeppelin T-shirts for you, by the way.
That was nice. I am an old school guy at heart. I'm just not that old school.
Okay.
If you're still watching this, you are a glutton for punishment, and you like looking at ugly people on screens. We appreciate all of it.
Maybe not super attractive. You are. Chris and I.
No. This is the equivalent of 713 yards.
You just have to look past the turkey neck. That's all.
Oh boy,
that's a wrap. I think
we will have coverage at LSA.com, Freep.com, greenandwhite.com. Thanks for watching. Good luck to you.